Good morning, everyone, from Ford City, Pennsylvania. This is Chuck King on Monday, September 20th, 2021, bringing you a morning Bible study, and we continue our lessons in Proverbs, and we are on Proverbs 25 this morning. Verse 1. These also are Proverbs of Solomon, which the men of Hezekiah, king of Judah, transcribed. So it seems to be a little bit different proverb beginning here. The other ones didn't talk about the men of Hezekiah being involved in transcribing these proverbs. Verse 2, it is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but the glory of kings is to search out a matter. We know the Lord in his glory conceals a lot from the people, and he calls us to seek him out for wisdom. If we lack wisdom in the midst of a situation, we should ask the Lord for that wisdom, that problem-solving ability that comes only from him. Verse 3, as the heavens for height and the earth for depth, so the heart of kings is unsearchable, describing how mysterious government leaders can be, in this case, kings. Verse 4, take away the dross from the silver, and there comes out a vessel for the smith. Take away the wicked before the king, and his throne will be established in righteousness. Purifying the silver produces a vessel. Taking away the wicked, dealing with them, establishes the king's throne in righteousness. Verse 6, do not claim honor in the presence of the king, and do not stand in the place of great men, for it is better that it be said of you, to you, come up here, than for you to be placed lower in the presence of the prince whom your eyes have seen. Jesus talked about this as well, that we should humble ourselves, take the lowest place, and perhaps we'll be invited to a higher place. This is the same message here in Proverbs 25. Verse 8, do not go out hastily to argue your case, otherwise what will you do in the end when your neighbor humiliates you? Argue your case with your neighbor, and do not reveal the secret of another, or he who hears it will reproach you, and the evil report about you will not pass away. So we should be careful when we're having an argument that we don't just present one side of it to convince people, because the other people have a different view and may humiliate you with that information, and you will ruin your reputation. Verse 11, like apples of gold in settings of silver is a word spoken in right circumstances, like an earring of gold and an ornament of fine gold is a wise reprover to a listening ear. Comparing the right word or the proper advice given to gold and silver and fine ornaments is the wise counsel of someone correcting us to those who listen. Verse 13, like the cold of snow in the time of harvest is a faithful messenger to those who send him, for he refreshes the soul of his masters. So it's a very positive thing for a person to faithfully deliver and accurately deliver the message that he was sent to give. It is the right way to communicate. Verse 14, like clouds and wind without rain, is a man who boasts of his gifts falsely. So this idea of thinking more highly of yourself than you ought to think is of the flesh. It's of the world. We see it all the time, and it's empty for a person to boast about something he doesn't even have. Verse 15, by forbearance a ruler may be persuaded, and a soft tongue breaks the bone. So we are encouraged here, and the rulers are encouraged to be patient, or we are encouraged to use patience to persuade a ruler, and to use soft words to bring about the proper result instead of using harsh words. Forbearance and a soft tongue, very important here. Have you found honey? Eat only what you need, that you not have it in excess and vomit it. So don't eat too many sweets. Don't eat too much honey, or it'll make you sick. Verse 17, let your foot rarely be in your neighbor's house, or he will become weary of you and hate you. That's good advice. Don't make yourself a pest to your neighbor. That is not something that will bring you a good reputation. Verse 18, like a club and a sword and a sharp arrow is a man who bears false witness against his neighbor. So the negativity of speaking a false testimony against your neighbor, it's like using a club, a sword, or a sharp arrow to destroy. Verse 19, like a bad tooth and an unsteady foot is confidence in a faithless man in time of trouble. So a faithless person, you can't trust in that person to do what is right. So it's like a bad tooth, like an affected tooth or a damaged foot. You will not be able to carry on without a lot of pain. Verse 20, like one who takes off a garment on a cold day, or like vinegar on soda, is he who sings songs to a troubled heart. So it's the opposite that thing that you should do. You wouldn't take off your garment when it's cold. That would be very unpleasant. Or pour vinegar on soda, which would make a lot of foul-smelling fumes. So we shouldn't sing songs of joy to someone who's troubled. Verse 21, if your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. And if he is thirsty, give him water to drink, for you will heap burning coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you. This is also New Testament teaching from Jesus, quoting this standard of loving your enemy, giving him food and drink, and it will cause these heaping coals to be placed on his head. In other words, it will bring pressure on the enemy to behave better toward you and bring his conscience to bear. And the Lord will reward you for loving your enemy. Verse 23, the north wind brings forth rain, and a backbiting tongue and angry countenance, comparing a backbiter to a north wind that brings rain. So the problem is the backbiter that brings anger. Verse 24, it is better to live in a corner of the roof than in a house shared with a contentious woman. This theme gets repeated throughout the Proverbs. It's something very much on the mind of the writer of the Proverbs, to live with someone who's always fighting with you is not a good situation. It's better to live alone. It's basically what it's saying. Verse 25, like cold water to a weary soul, so is good news from a distant land. So good news is like a drink of cold water to the thirsty person. Verse 26, like a trampled spring and a polluted well is a righteous man who gives way before the wicked. So when a righteous man yields to wickedness, it's like a polluted spring or well. That's quite a picture. It muddies the water when you give way before the wicked. Verse 27, it is not good to eat much honey, nor it is glory to search out one's own glory. So comparing eating too much honey to searching out your own glory or to manifest your pride is like eating too much honey. It's not good. Final verse 28, like a city that is broken into and without walls is a man who has no control over his spirit. So a person without self-control of his spirit is like a city that is vulnerable to attack, that is already broken into. And so these are the lessons from Proverbs 25, the same kind of comparisons to that which is wise compared to that which is foolish. And we have these teachings continue throughout the entire collection of Proverbs. Sure, we'll talk about Proverbs 26 tomorrow. God bless.